Good morning, everybody, and I want to thank you for coming back on this Wednesday morning for another edition of Wednesday Morning Cup of Crazy with me, Ross Alan Skorzewski. And yes, we've been having some great episodes over the last few weeks, and I want to thank you. And I'm always grateful for you coming and spending this next 10 to 15 minutes as we talk about personal growth strategies and development and all that and more. So as you've known, we've done some of these episodes that are more like 20 or 30 minutes. I'm taking them down to 10 and 15. Why? Because they're supposed to be quick hits. And sometimes Ross can just get on a rant and then it's like squirrel. I want to stay super focused, dialed in, give you that 10-minute little clip of inspiration for you to go out and really do your best job with intentionally bringing about that best representative of yourself to the world that you do life with every day, professionally and relationally, whether that's with your husband, your wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, aunts, uncles, in-laws, children, boss, CEO, coworkers, or whatever that might be. Because to be honest with you, when it comes to the end of the day, you as a relational being, it's really hard to separate personal from professional. Sometimes we are so focused on trying to separate the two that we really sometimes put on the shelf for the majority of the day some of the best attributes of who we are so that we can be dialed in the professional realm. And then we go home and we turn off that professional switch, a lot of great qualities there, and we go home and then we switch on the relational switch, and all of a sudden some of those great qualities that we bring to the table on the job get put on hold until, 7 o'clock the next morning or 8 o'clock. And no, the two to me live together and dwell together. Why? Because it takes all of this to function on the professional realm as well on the personal and relational realm. And everything in the office or out on the job site, wherever that might be, or at home with friends, family, it's all relational to a degree. It's not just about tasks. It's not just about job descriptions, because no matter where you're at, if you're doing life with other people, there will always be a relational component to that professional setting, to that relational setting with your friends, your in-laws, like I just said, cousins, aunts and uncles, whatever, husband and wife. So, personal growth and development. Today, what we're going to be talking about is conflict resolution. I had a person in the staff come up to me last week. She's like, I just love your show. I think it's great, and thank you so much for talking about the things that you do, but could you do something, could you talk a little bit about conflict resolution? And I thought to myself, you know what? Within 10 minutes or so, yes, we can accomplish a lot when it comes to conflict and conflict resolution. But I want to start off with this, okay? Before we get going into anything, it is Wednesday morning, and in order for us to stay fueled and motivated with the day, let's grab our cups of coffee and have a cleansing sip of organic coffee, shall we? It's Wednesday morning cup of crazy. Shall we partake? Thank you. Yes. So with that, conflict resolution, personal growth and development. You know what? I want to just put this out there, and we might have even just kind of lightly touched on this before. The idea that one is bettering themselves personally, the three questions, what are you doing to better yourself, better your family, and others around you? When you're literally on that growth track, this does not mean that there is going to now be an absence of conflict, an absence of potential strife or struggle or adversity or tribulations with those that you do life with. Because really, at the end of the day, when it comes down to any arena, like I said, professional or personal, when you're doing life with somebody else, you're going to be doing life with somebody who potentially approaches situations or tasks in a different way than you do. You're going to approach, whether it's a idea or brainstorming, coming to the table to come up with a decision of where you're gonna go for dinner, whatever that might be, and you're going to potentially find a spot where you either agree to disagree, or you agree to agree, or disagree to disagree, and then all of a sudden you're off to the races, and there's tension, and then there's conflict. Well, what do you do, though, in the midst of conflict? How you resolve. And this is the beautiful thing about conflict resolution. I think most people are deathly afraid of conflict across the board. I say most people, that's a generalized statement, because there's a percentage of people out there that don't really care, and they love conflict. More than anything, they actually like to stir the pot to create conflict, but sometimes it really then at that point in time is all about pushing other people's buttons to set them off, but never really getting to a place of resolve. My thing is this: when it comes to personal growth and development for yourself, and for yourself particularly when you're working on that number one, what am I doing to develop myself? When you get into conflict, or when you recognize that conflict is about to be had, to me, it's your approach. How are you going to approach conflict? Are you going into this potential conflict resolution scenario with timidity, fear, anger, bitterness? Or are you going into it with an even-keeled perspective? Maybe your emotions are running high, but they're being kept at bay. So you're going into it with more of a mature posture that says, I don't like this, or I'm upset, I'm angry, I want to rip the person's head off, I want to smack him, I want to yank him by the tongue and slap him with it. Because maybe emotionally you're a little jacked, but on the outside of it, you're recognizing, I have to go into this conflict resolution calm, cool, and collected, willing to state my piece, willing to potentially agree to disagree, but we're going to come out on the other side with a resolution that brings life. And this is really, I think, a discipline that is learned. Not everybody can do conflict well. Not everybody can do conflict resolution well. We talk about it here at the Wellness Way throughout all the offices that we have across the United States. I even taught a class on it last summer at our largest training event in Traverse City, conflict resolution. We talk about learning how to conflict well, to be intentional with conflicting well. Why? Because, to be honest with you, like I said, conflict is inevitable. When you do life with someone that's not you, you're going to have conflict. There's going to be tension. Now, I know, like I said, not everybody likes it. Some people, would rather run away from it. But the more you run away from conflict or try to avoid, the more you try to sweep things under the rug, the bigger the problem gets. The more chaos ensues, the more dysfunction comes into our ability to communicate and to be able to actually get to the resolve that we both or all want, so that we can reach the common objective for whatever it is that you're squabbling about in the first place. Let's take a look at this conflict, shall we? It's a serious disagreement or argument, typically a protracted one. The eternal conflict between the sexes, right? The idea that man and woman will just never agree on 100% of the issues across the board. There's always going to be conflict. Well, to some degree, that's true, but we can even read on a little bit more. It comes down to the idea, an incompatibility between two or more opinions, principles, and interests. Go figure. Okay, husbands, wives, siblings, right? Brothers and sisters. Does everybody agree upon every single thing in life? Or do we really see that there literally is an incompatibility between two or more opinions, principles, or interests on the job site, in the workplace environment? Does everybody always get along? Does everybody always agree with the direction that the manager or the CEO, the boss, the vice president wants to take? Does everybody just follow hook, line, and sinker? And it's just like, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and they're whistling while they work? Not always. This isn't Disney, for the love of Joseph, right? Not everybody agrees. But what happens, though, when you get called out? What happens when your emotions get the best of you? What happens when an office-place relationship goes awry and you have to actually work towards the common objective of resolving whatever issue is at hand? What happens between husbands and wives, between brothers and sisters? What happens when they really have to sit at the table and figure their stuff out so they can get beyond crazy that's spilling over and affecting everybody else's relationship? How do you get to a place where you can seriously conflict and conflict well? Like I said, I think number one, you've got to be okay with realizing that conflict is going to happen. Number two, you don't always have to go into conflict with the idea that just because you're hurting, that the other person has to experience emotionally what you're feeling. Number three, I think you can go into conflict being okay with not being right and letting the other person actually win once in a while. I think too many people think that conflict resolution means that one person wins and one person loses. Why does that always have to be the case? That no matter what, someone wins and someone loses. I get it. To a degree, yes, can both parties be right on everything? I think sometimes yes. Is one party maybe more right and the other party, more wrong? Yes, but really at the end of the day, when it comes to resolve and resolution, being right and acting in a posture that says, well, I'm right and I will do whatever it takes to prove that I am right, and using no matter what the tactic might be just to force my opinion, which is right, upon that person so that they buckle and they give in to my right thinking. I don't think that's always necessary. I don't think that always brings about a healthy resolve. We can agree to disagree, but sometimes being right doesn't mean the way you're acting is right, or you're going about resolve is right. Let's look at resolution here, okay? This is really kind of key. When it comes to conflicting and conflicting well and learning how to get to a place of resolution, it's the act of solving a problem, dispute, or contentious matter. The peaceful resolution of all disputes. I think really learning how to conflict well, especially on the job site, is recognizing that not everybody is like you. Not everybody is like Ross. And thank God for that, because I think I would have a high degree of conflict with people if they were like me, because I have a lot of internal conflict with me over me in the first place. But learning how to conflict well sometimes really is about decreasing, closing this, and operating these two things on the side of that big noggin of ours and listening to the truth and to the heart of what it is that other person is bringing to the table, and not always being so quick to become defensive. Because a lot of times in conflict resolution, what we're more concerned about really at the end of the day is how we feel. The justification for why we might want to continue to stir the pot, the justification for why we might want to continue to be at odds, or for the justification for why we need to stand up and bark louder than the rest of everybody and offend the masses. But what if it really, is not about the emotional investment into that moment, but the truth of what the other people around you are saying? And you taking that information in and then allowing principle, allowing your morals instead, because maybe you don't have to capitulate. Maybe you don't have to get into a place where you're just succumbing to somebody else's outrageous behavior just to win in that moment. Maybe you can let them vent, get crazy, scream at you, yell at you, point out some things, make it even personal, but you sit there quiet and agree based on the principle and the truth that they're bringing to the table, but you don't have to make it personal. See, the personal side of us, a lot of times, we want to make it emotional. We want to make it more about justification and winning and being heard. But what if you don't always have to be heard? I think conflicting and conflicting well is two people coming to a table, 3, 4, 5, a group of people coming to the table, highly charged with emotion, but being mature enough to keep the emotion at bay, willing to talk about the black and white task-oriented details that bring you all there in the first place, having an open mind, but being quick to listen to others rather than quick to tell the world around you why you're right and why they're wrong. You can't conflict well in that. You can't resolve well in that. That is not peaceful. If anything, that is irritating. How do I know this? I've been there. I've been the irritating one. I think through time and through maturity, through trying to get to a place of resolve quicker, we quiet ourselves more. It's not about the emotional investment. It's not always about being right. Sometimes it's just really getting to a place where there is peace. And sometimes, you know what, some other people around you need to see what it's like to truly lead in a time of chaos and tension and conflict. But lead by silence, lead by intentionality, lead by maturity, by reining in the emotions, and sometimes getting yourself once again to a place where you do what is right versus what feels right. Hey, I don't always like conflict, especially when it's about me. When people point out my failures, my faults, my deficiencies, what do you think I want to do? I want to stand up. I want to start defending myself. I want to start screaming from the rooftops. I want to start pointing back at them. But I've learned to just shut my mouth and say, you know what? You're right. I don't say you're right just to appease the moment and to shut them up. I say, you know what, you're right because there's a lot of truth, because they're seeing something maybe that I'm not. And part of conflicting well is being able to take in that information, but then do something with it. But what if you have to be the person that brings the conflict to the table to the person across from you that doesn't really want to get into the midst of conflict with you? How are you going to go about it? Is it about winning and that other person losing? Or is it really about winning in the moment where you both come out on the other side with a peaceful agreement to continue to keep moving forward, working on the tasks at hand, refining the relationship, but working towards the common objective so that at the end of the day, you both still want to do life with each other? Husband, wife, brother, sister, co-workers. It's all about learning how to set each other up to win with each other. Conflict resolution. To really get into the depths of this, we could spend hours teaching upon this. But really, it's understanding an incompatibility between two or more opinions. Opinions! But what if that person's opinion trumps yours? I think you need to show a little deference, and I think you need to remember sometimes who you are, your place in that relationship, especially in the workplace environment. If you're dealing with somebody who might actually have a position above you, sometimes it's better just to sit and listen and to work on the things that they're pointing out. Conflict well, be peaceful, shut your pie hole, listen, and then do something with it, and don't turn it into a personal attack against you. And if they make it a personal attack against you, at least get through it, work on it, wait for it to calm down, and then go back to that person and then ask questions. When we were just having this, talk, this conflicting resolution session, I just want to make sure this is what I got out of it and this is what I heard. Is that what you really wanted me to hear? And if they say yes, you go, great. And you say, well, no, that's not what I really meant. And say, okay, can you clarify? Because I want to make sure that as we go forward, we don't have to redo what we just did. Conflict resolution. It's not easy, but it's something that we continually have to deal with potentially day after day after day, especially with personal growth and development. When you start working on yourself and changing yourself, not everybody changes at the pace that you do, and not everybody's going to change with you, period, which means it might stir the pot, it might muddy the waters, and you might actually find yourself face to face with conflict. But how are you going to go about it? I say, be wise. Close your mouth, listen, speak carefully, choose your words wisely. Don't let emotion fuel the conversation. Just win with each other at the end of the day. Conflict resolution. Hey, see how it works for you. We'll see you next Wednesday for your next edition of Wednesday Morning Cup of Crazy with me, Ross Alan Skrzyjewski. See you then.